The opening in this game became very popular in 2000 when there was a world championship between Kasparov and Kramnik, and I'm talking about the Berlin defense. The Berlin starts after the moves e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop e5, knight f6, castles, takes, and after d4, knight d6, takes, and now after knight f5, the queens come off, and it looks like white is better in this game, but it turns out that it's very drawish. It's extremely difficult for white to actually get any edge here. Because usually the king will go to, for example, after b6, then the king will be on b7, the rooks will come off, and it's virtually impossible to actually do anything as white. So anyway, I played white in this game against Houdini 2 Pro, and I actually managed to draw this game in, I don't know, I think it was something like 115 moves or something. So let's continue this. I play knight c3, h6, stopping any knight to g5 ideas, and also bishop g5, of course. h3, well, maybe h3 prepares g4, and also stopping any bishop g4 moves and so on. So h3, bishop d7, just developing a piece. And after b3, obviously the idea is to put this bishop on b2, because there is no other square really. Okay, there is perhaps f4, but then after, for example, g5, the bishop has to move anyway. So the move makes sense, and here I just, well, obviously I had to get this rook out somewhere. Maybe I could have played rook d1 instead of rook f to d1, but you know. Okay, a4, b6, and like I said, the king is now preparing to go to b7 in order to connect the rooks. And now I just double my rooks and trade everything off. Okay, obviously I don't want to double my pawns, even though I did get double pawns, but after knight to h4, obviously I want to take the knight first, and when black takes back, okay, the in-between move of course, but then when black takes back, my idea was to simply take the rook. So what is going on here? Well, my idea is now when black plays rook d8 to simply trade. But after bishop f5, which I was looking at, there I cannot really do anything, because okay, maybe I could move the knight somewhere, let's say for example to c3, but then it's just blocking this bishop, and also for example, let's say knight c3 and then rook d8, and when I trade I don't have any way to protect this pawn on b3, so I have to play f3. And this looks a little bit ugly, because black can black can choose to take, and when I take back I have double pawns on the e file, but that, it was okay. And g6, king f2, f1, I'm preparing to get my king into the game. Bishop takes, pawn takes, and now the rook trade. But as you can see, it's very difficult for black to use this tiny advantage, and it turns out it's impossible. So I just played h4, just kicking the bishop away, and this is basically where the game could have ended already, even though it did actually continue for 90 moves or so. So nothing really going on here. I just kept black away from ever, getting inside my game. But notice here, white is actually down a pawn. Black has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pawns against 5 pawns when this one comes off. But it doesn't really matter, because there's no way for black to actually do anything. I just repeat the moves, and I will never let the black king to get to this square. And even if it would, I would just give a check, and then again the king has to move. But there were some very important moments, even in this seemingly drawish game. So let's take a look at those. Okay, here's one example. It's very important to actually move the king rather than. Black is sort of trying to triangulate the moves, and now, for example, here. So the king has moved. So I think it's hard to explain, but I think it is important to move the king rather than the bishop. Maybe I missed something here in my annotation, but I mean, for example, if black would ever manage to get this bishop over here and then over here, then the black king is sort of unstoppable. And for example, if king f4, then just pawn checks, and then when the pawns come off, then this pawn on e4 would drop off. So I move my king, and also I managed to trade off my h pawn for the g pawn over here. And now, of course, my threat is also to round up against this pawn. So even though black is actually up a pawn, it makes no difference whatsoever. And I think I could even stop here, because as you can see, there's absolutely nothing going on. It's just back and forth all the time, and black cannot get inside, and white is just protecting. And also pushing these pawns makes no difference at all, because even if b5 I wouldn't take, I would just keep the pawns exactly where they are, because there's no way for black to to attack my pawns on a4 and c4 anyway, well, as well as b3. And okay, I would potentially win a pawn after something like b5, but I mean, that's completely worthless. So I will actually stop here. I will go to the last position, and it looks like this. I managed to get my pawn to f5, but again, it doesn't matter. It doesn't make any difference whatsoever. So that's where the game ended, as a draw. So let's just take a look at the opening one more time. Like I said, this became very popular after 2000, when there was the World Championship, and I don't see this opening very often anymore, because it's extremely drawish. As you can see, I even drew the computer. So and of course, this is way beyond the book. I think the last book move was something like, I don't know, a5, and then after bishop b2, which makes sense. I'm not so sure if this is inside, I mean, within book or not, but it doesn't matter. So I hope you enjoy this one too. I've posted 3 games now, I think, 5 in total against Houdini 2 Pro, and I hope you learned something.